What?
Never live. I kind of like this format. I know nobody does, but I do, where I just push live and I kind of continue the conversation instead
Yeah.
of instead of like making a big deal out of it. Oh well, hello everyone.
If you
So
wanted a
all
formal conversation, you would turn on the TV.
right, and
You
it
wouldn't be
wouldn't.
watching YouTube.
It certainly wouldn't be Sweetcast.
No.
Certainly not. But yeah, I'm really, really excited to talk to you again.
Likewise,
Uh,
sir.
I've got a lot of things that I want to talk to you about, so I think
Sure.
this will be fun. But
Go
I
for it.
gotta first off though, Paul, I'm gonna show everyone my camera trick. Something's up with my camera. I think I probably need to restart my computer. But if I push camera, let's see if it kicks me out.
Right.
There, so here's my camera. It's come on now.
Yeah.
There it goes. It's gone. So I am
Is it
here.
switching to something else, or it just like automatically just
It brings up this message that says, "Look like your camera was unplugged." It looks like your camera was unplugged. Plug it back in or select a different camera. But then I can push it again and it'll show again. So I think like a restart would probably fix this, but I
or even just like unplugging it and replugging it, possibly?
maybe I'd have to climb behind my computer
Oh, okay.
desk. But
Yes. Yeah, that's too much of a hassle.
yeah,
This is
we'll
okay.
just it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I know you all will miss my face, but it'll be a good time. Yang Zan
Up,
Zhao is
Yang.
here. Hello, he says evening. Try a new cable. Yeah, I'll get it worked out for next time. Not today though. Not right now. We're here. Why not? Great to see you here. And I'll say I better share this out as well. And if you don't mind sharing it out, that will help, Yang, since you're in the chat, and we'll make sure that people see that we're live. I'm going to do that here real quick. Brian, how are you doing? It's so good to see you again.
Likewise, sir. I'm okay. I'm all right. A bit up and down. Strange year, uh, but overall positive. I'll tell you one thing: happier now that I'm on to my next campaign.
Yeah.
It's that space between campaigns that's brutal.
So, and I have some guesses and some reasons why it's brutal for me, but I want to hear your take. So you just finished a campaign, it's been shipped, and now you're preparing for the next one.
Yes.
Why is that time so stress inducing?
You mean fulfillment, or
So is that it? I guess that's my question then. Is it the fulfillment, or is it right after fulfillment but before you launch the next campaign?
I would say, gee, I don't know. I pretty much enjoy the whole thing, to tell the truth. I mean, my
Yeah.
favorite part is always when I'm my favorite stage of all, the sweet spot, is when I get the first pages from my artist, and then I can tinker with the dialogue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is going to change what I'm writing.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And to me, like, that's the ultimate sweet spot. I guess the part that's tough sometimes is grinding, going on as many streams as possible. Our biggest obstacle as indie crowdfunders is exposure. Just getting people to know that we exist.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then I would say the toughest part is when it looks like I'm going to be on like a massive stream,
Mm.
right? And it looks like everything's go, and I'm going to get introduced to a whole new audience, a big audience, right? Not that I go through life expecting, people to give me their stands,
Sure. Yeah.
right? Give me your stands. You have stands, share them with me. But if it looks like something big is going to happen, it always falls through.
Yeah, it's tough because it's a double-edged sword, and you've been and I'll say it 100. There's one reason I'm having you on the show is because I respect you as a writer very much.
Oh, dude,
But you're
thank you.
always professional.
I try to
And
be.
yeah, you do great, and I know
Thanks.
I'm not blowing smoke, but
No,
I'm
no, I
pump,
appreciate that.
I
I
pumped your
appreciate that.
ego up, but
No, look. I have a problem accepting compliments. Like, I have friends who are like, Brian, compliment. So, yeah, because you don't want to be arrogant. You look at people who are, and it's just unseemly.
yeah.
And yeah, I will always just be that dude that's doing the best that he can. That's making the best comic that he possibly can.
Yeah. Well, it's great, but it's one of those things that you know, you make a great book, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at Six Gun Gorilla, but it's one of those criminally underseen books, and I mean criminally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody that reads it that I've heard is like, oh my gosh, it was great.
I know.
But it's, again, it's one of those things that it's the grind, and you do it for sure, but it's just one of the tough things with indie comics. So well, since we're talking about it too, I might as well, I'll share the screen so we've got it up.
All right.
But Six Gun Gorilla is the story we're talking about. But this is cool because this is an omnibus, 10 issues long, significant. I had the first trade for it, which it seemed like a huge book for a crowdfunded book as it is. And this one's bigger. So I'm really excited about this, having like a big thick book.
Oh,
so
God.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about it, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit more.
All right. This is going to be the entire Long Days of Vengeance arc in one book. That's to say, it's going to be the previous 8 issues compiled, but also with issues 9 and 10 drawn in and added to the book. Cool. So you're going to have the entire story from beginning to end.
So this is skipping the publication of single issues 9 and 10. Is that correct?
Yeah, because that's not doable for somebody at my level.
Yeah.
There's no way, because even though my last 2 campaigns did well by any metric, you know, and it's funny because, you know, sometimes you take things for granted and you're just like, damn it, I can't get past 20K. And then you see people that have amazing looking books and they're struggling to get to like 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when I tell myself to have a big, tall, cool, refreshing glass of shut the F up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people told me, like, on the last 2 campaigns, like, oh, I'm going to wait for the next trade paperback. But, you know, of course, I want to tell them, like, yo, there isn't going to be a next trade paperback if nobody backs this.
Right. And that's and we talked about this a little bit, and it really is. It's crazy to get one comic book published in any kind of format. It's a feat. But to be able to have reprinted versions, and I keep thinking, man, I would love to someday do a Downcast omnibus. If I'm being realistic, I just don't know. I mean, because I still have many issues to write, so I'm still working on it. But it's one of those things that you can't, you know, don't get too ahead of yourself. It's still independent comics, and there's just a lot of work to do. So, you know, getting the first crowdfunded edition out, getting the Alterna issues out, that's all fantastic. I was glad I could do a reprint of the 1 and 2 volumes together. That's really cool. But again, every one of those is just such a big project, and it takes a lot of money that it's you don't want to take it for granted. So someone like me that's read Six Gun Gorilla, I honestly have lost track of how far I've read into it. I've backed everything I could get.
Okay.
Loved it. I don't remember which issues so it was. So I'm
That's
getting this because I just want the whole thing in one book.
Awesome. Thank you.
But there is new material for me that has not been published yet, because you have the last 2 issues of the story arc, right?
Right. But at the same time, I love my backers, and I would never do them dirty. So if you have the first trade paperback, or you have the previous issues, there's going to be a tier where you can get the new stuff, the stuff that you don't have, without having double copies of stories, you know, that you already have. And so, you know, no double dipping on my part. There'll be a tier for everybody, because what can I say? My backers have just been awesome and amazing, incredibly supportive. I am so grateful that everybody who reads this book seems to love it. I never expected that. I really didn't. I figured some people really would dig it, but not like everybody. It's strange, and I don't say that with arrogance. I say that with with gratitude.
It's a matter of fact. It's honestly, now, like, I don't want to like rebeat the horse, but I'll just tell everybody from my perspective, Six Gun Gorilla. I don't remember where I met you first online, Brian, but I
I do.
had you on one time, and you talked about your book, and I was having in those days I was having everybody on my channel. It just felt like a revolving door. I was talking about books all the time, and to me, I just classify books into books my kids can read, books I really want to read, and then it was like they look good but they're not for me. Six
Mhm.
Gun Gorilla is a I mean, at first blush it's a western about a gorilla, and I thought I'm not really into westerns, but
Right.
over the course of it I thought, okay, maybe I'll back it. I backed it, got the book. My wife started reading it and she was like, huh, like kind of interesting. And I was like, well, let me start. So she didn't even finish it. Took it from her, started reading it, and I read it in one
Yoink.
sitting.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
read it in one sitting.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I've been way too harsh, not just on westerns, but like this is such an interesting take on a western. But I think a big part of that, and I want to talk about this in writing as well,
Mhm.
is that you take this idea very seriously. Like you
Yes.
treat it with the respect that I think anybody, whatever it is, you like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they're silly. But the reason I think that the series was so successful is that they actually, even though it was a parody really
Yes.
of
So Frank Miller's
Daredevil,
Daredevil. Yeah.
yeah, but they took it seriously. They
Yes.
treated it with like like it deserved to be treated, and
Right.
I think that's why it read so well.
I agree.
And
I couldn't agree more.
I think that's the same thing here with Six Gun Gorilla. Is I care about this gorilla and his struggle, and there's so much about it. It's so fun to read. Anyway, I know every time we get on, I sit and go over it all,
No,
but
well, can I address something real quick?
please do. Yeah,
Okay. One of the things that frustrates me about contemporary comics is how everything has to be deconstructionist. Everything's so meta, you know?
yeah,
Everything's kind of winking at you.
hmm
And, I always wanted to mainly be a horror writer, right?
yeah,
That's my bag. But I've discovered that what I'm actually best at is taking really silly premises and then telling a serious story with them.
yeah,
And I've discovered that when you play something like this, like a completely off the wall concept like this, it's more fun when you play it straight,
yeah,
right? As opposed to always, winking at the audience. I wanted this to be something that was sincere.
yeah. Absolutely, and it translates, but and it's one that when I read it, I thought, yeah, you know what, that is the piece of I think there are a lot of comic books all over the place that suffer from, hey, it's all just a fun. I remember I've had people read my books like in that I know in real life, and they're like, oh, I thought it would be like goofy and silly, because
Right.
it's a comic book,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like that's not. The thing I love about comics is that they don't like they treat it like a serious medium, and yeah, you're reading about a gorilla that's hauling around these giant guns, but that's what's so awesome is that you can escape into that world. It's
Exactly.
so fun.
Yeah. I had a blast writing it. And scripts for 9 and 10 are done. Yeah, no,
Nice.
I mean, I think that ultimately we need to make the comics that we want to read.
Yeah.
And, this was just, this was a story that kind of emerged whole cloth in my head, which very rarely happens. And it was very easy to write. And I'm just really grateful to have worked with the people that I've worked with. I've been super lucky in that regard, very unlucky in other regards. But when it comes to my creative team, super duper lucky and super duper blessed.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So I want to ask you. I've got a lot of questions for you, but let me
Nice.
touch in with the chat here real quick. So we have some more people in here. Uh,
What up, everybody?
Louise, the viewer. Hello, all. Skip Edwards is here. Hello. We got Ying in here as well, saying hi to everyone. Isn't the time between campaigns like the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas? You can't let yourself go for like a month or so. Yeah, I don't know. There's a weird kind of there's definitely a weird phase for me though. Having like 2 campaigns and you're kind of alternating, and right now it's just Fatal. This has been a totally it's been a totally different time, but after Fatal ships, that'll be really interesting because I don't owe a book to anybody for a little while.
Right.
That's going to be strange, but obviously Downcast 4 has been in production for a while now, so I don't know, it's interesting. Brian Edwards Art says Brian should do a AR-15 orangutan 6-gun gorilla
I did.
crossover. Did you? Okay.
Yes, but it got canceled.
Ah, that's a shame. Was
Yeah.
that in one of your campaigns, or was that in another
This
campaign?
was a story for somebody else. This was a
Gotcha.
story for somebody else's book, and I wanted to do something that was completely off the wall for it, and there were people who had issues that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, basically, when you got cancel culture and your anti-cancel culture scene, you got a problem.
Yeah, that's oh man, that it's tough because I think if you are a casual viewer or even a dedicated viewer to like just comics YouTube in general and the creation of comics, especially crossovers, holy cow, there's so much that can happen that can make something not work. Like any project actually coming to fruition is a major accomplishment.
It is.
Especially
It's a small miracle.
yeah, depending on everything that can happen. So sorry to hear that didn't go. I still have I talked to you a long time ago about writing something for me in the Downcast universe, and it was like it's not gonna work out. Nothing, totally me, not you. But I still want to see that happen someday.
I'd love to.
So yeah, I don't know when that'll be, but I'd love to have you write something for me. I think that'd be so fun.
Oh man, absolutely. I think the world that you've created is really interesting and complex and fertile ground for the imagination.
Yeah, I think you could do a killer job. Yang says, you've discovered a similar route to Savage Steve Holland.
Do you know who Savage Steve Holland was?
So is he a pro wrestler? I don't know.
No, he was a 80s movie director. He was kind of like John Hughes, but like an edgier John Hughes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm not in the know. Benjamin Soto is here. He says, looks like fun. This is going to be full color, black and white. Full color, right?
Color. Yeah. Absolutely.
People like full color. I've learned that. I've known it, but I've learned it again.
I'm a big black and white stan. Not that I don't like color comics, right? Especially the French ones are always beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I originally wanted to do 6-Gun as a black and white comic, but back then, black and white was a very, very hard sell. I think it's an easier sell nowadays with the rise of manga.
Yeah.
But there's some people that still, don't want to read black and white comics. I personally think they're missing out, but whatever.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's all good.
Shadowhawk Talk says, "Hail Clint, Brian in the chat. Welcome."
Up, brother.
Just saying hi to everybody. Yes, Savage Steve Holland also created the cartoons Eek the Cat and Terrible Thunder Lizards. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Interesting. All right. Cool. Well, so I want to change the subject here and talk about Zoop.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know a ton about this when the platform came out. I saw that they were basically using it as, and correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, this is my understanding, is that it's more like, hey, we're publishing books, we're a publishing house, but from the forward-facing side of it, it is like crowdfunding. So you're not really donating money to make something happen. You are actually pre-ordering it. They're fulfilling everything. They're doing all the legwork and logistics.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Okay, correct.
Yes. There's a difference between established comic creators whose books that they're carrying and regular plebs like me who can now submit our projects. You see up at the top of the page next to Explore, it says submit your project. I clicked on that. I submitted my project, and they were very enthusiastic about it and got back in touch with me. And now I've got a campaign on there, and this is a crowdfunding platform focused exclusively on comic books, right? So
Cool.
anybody
Yeah.
that goes there, they're looking for comics.
Yeah.
It's not like Kickstarter and Indiegogo where comics is like, number like 300 down the rung of stuff that they make their money off of.
It's all comics.
All comics.
Which you can see a benefit there. Like anytime I go to Indiegogo, I'm not looking for anything but comics
Right.
anyway.
Right.
And so it's kind of just the other stuff's just more clutter to get through. But that is interesting. I'm a big proponent of trying new things. I love especially independent I mean, things change all the time,
Yes.
whether you like for it to change or not. And it's one of those things to just be testing and trying out, and I hope it goes well.
Thanks, man. Here's the thing. I never really get to give back as a creator much. I help out where I can with new talent. If they have any questions or they have a problem with the story, they want some writing advice. It's not like the artists that I know where if somebody's campaign looks like it's not going to quite make it, boom, they'll drop a cover. Boom, they'll drop like some sketch cards. I can't be like, boom, just drop a paragraph to get their book funded. So I figured we'd all been looking from afar at this platform. I was like, okay, boys, I'll be the first one in.
Yeah.
And I'll report back with my experience, and we'll see what happens. A third option when it comes to crowdfunding our books can only be a good thing.
Absolutely. How has it gone? How's it been going? Well, I mean, it's hard because it's not apples to apples because this is an omnibus. I think that's a difference.
Yeah.
$50 for an omnibus is actually a great deal. So yeah. I'm not like, to me, I'm not worried about that. Yeah. But it's just the fact that the price point is different. What were you selling your trade paperback for, the first one?
I think that was 20.
20.
20,
yeah.
25, maybe.
For like 6 issues or something like that, right? Yeah. I mean, still it's a really good deal, especially for a crowdfunded book. But this, yeah, I mean, it does change the math a little bit. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see, but
and shipping's gone up too, unfortunately.
That shipping, I just got done shipping Dracula. Man, I got punished. Freight by itself. Dude. So getting the books from the printer to me, the last time, so a year ago, it was like last November, when I got them shipped to me. I think it was about $1,100 to have for freight to have that shipped to me.
Wow.
Wait, maybe I have it wrong. Hold on. No, excuse me. It was 800 something initially. This one to have Dracula shipped to me was $1,800 to have the freight. It was just crippling. Like it couldn't even calculate that into any of my numbers because it was so much more expensive. It's insane.
Oh, it's brutal. And look, we don't like, as comic creators, we don't like charging our backers $30 for shipping, which is what it is to like Australia, for instance, or Singapore. And, but it's just, and you know what? We are going to find a way around that. There's RJ from Critical Blast. He's doing fulfillment for people now.
Yeah.
There's Hockey in Australia, who looks like he might be a hub for there. And of course, Simon Poitier, my boy, he's been working on this for quite some time. Once we figure out a network, because that's the beauty of our scene, is that it's international. We can do I'll scratch your back, you'll scratch mine, and hopefully we'll be able to get these books to our foreign backers at a radically reduced price for shipping.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping it gets down. It
will tough, eventually,
but
yeah.
But interesting. So your experience so far on Zoop, what do you think? Is it too early to tell?
So far so good. So far so good. I know some people have been avoiding them Well, first of all, most of the people that I know already have Zoop accounts because they signed up for Axe Wielder John.
Oh yeah.
And if you haven't seen that, that looks dope AF. All right.
Yeah, killer.
Yeah, killer. So I already had an account there, and I was like, "Oh, submit your project, okay." What makes some people leery is that, and this always comes up. If somebody hasn't brought it up in the chat yet, I'll bring it up before they can. There's a woman called Camilla Zhang,
Oh yeah.
Zhang, I think
Uh,
Zhang, I think.
I'm very familiar. Yes.
You know who this is?
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't.
Yeah.
I had no clue. And then somebody said that that she went to work there, and so they're not backing my book. I'm like, okay, look, if you don't want to back my book, fine, but don't not back my book because of that bitch.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like
Mhm.
where's the logic there?
I
And it's
made
not like she runs the site. And also, guess what? There's no way that they don't know I'm CG.
Yeah, well, the part of it, I made this point about a year ago, and it's terrible if someone cancels you and kicks you off a platform. That's terrible.
Yeah.
And the consequences to that, in some cases, if we take it all the way back to you boy Zach, he made an awful lot of money. And I'm not saying that
GA did.
it was a good thing, but it was proof that that so many people basically registered their disagreement with that cancellation. That's
Yes.
the way that I look at it. People voted with their wallets.
Yeah.
The
And
worst,
understandably.
absolutely, the worst thing though is to me to cancel yourself. So like
Yes.
there's no opportunity to make a statement. There's no opportunity, this other person's there. I would make them have to look at your book. If
Yes.
they
Thank
have to
you.
review it, and they have
Yes.
to play by your rules.
Yes.
Rather than saying, "Oh well, I can't be there now. I can't go to that restaurant anymore. I can't go." No,
Yes.
they're the ones that need to change their ways.
Right.
So
Right. And
that's
as far as I
always
could
bothered
tell,
me.
yeah, no, of course. And rightfully so. Um, but from what I can tell is they are apolitical. They seem
Yeah,
to give zero Fs from what I can tell.
right.
And there's no way that they don't know who I am, because you honestly think that they would work with me or anyone else without sticking a microscope up my butt and taking a look at like my Twitter profile and my Facebook, like all my social media. I
Yeah,
mean, there's no way that they don't know who I am. So far so good. It doesn't look like they're banning people because of their politics, or and the crazy thing always is, and I make a point with this, is I'm a lefty,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And all my Democrat friends are looking at me like I moved to the right. I'm like, no, you are the ones that moved. I stayed exactly where I was.
Yeah,
Um, and sites like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, look, they are not our friends.
yeah,
Google, YouTube, Twitter, they are not our friends. They are platforms that we use to build our brands.
yeah,
That's how I see it.
yeah.
And having one more platform with which to build our brands can only be a good thing, because those other platforms, guess what? They could snap their fingers and we could be gone in a heartbeat.
Right. It's weird because I remember it was a few years ago now, but Patreon, do
Yes.
you remember that big hullabaloo over them kicking Sargon of Akkad out? And
Yeah, that was bullshit.
it absolutely 100% was. And the worst thing was that was the same time, like it was not a week before, that I was like, I need to build out a Patreon and figure out
Oh,
how to get, everybody's using Patreon. There's already people there. There's got to be a way to do this. And then that happened to Sargon of Akkad. Was it wrong for Patreon? 100%. Nobody talks about it now. Like never. It just is. And I would love. I don't know. I sometimes I think back, like maybe I should have just done Patreon, because I had figured it would probably be part of a healthy model. But what has happened is it's
yeah.
like I got to put all my eggs in one
Yes.
basket, and it has to
Yes.
be crowdfunding, and it has to be no distribution, and it has to be it just has to be the same way. and that gets I don't know, it's like this is
Tired
tired.
is what it
It's
gets.
not a way to
Tired.
grow a business. It's
No,
like, well, now SJWs are making me not make wise business decisions
exactly.
because they're SJWs, like
Right.
cutting.
The logic is faulty. The logic itself is faulty. Like, oh, you have a Kickstarter campaign? Well, you know about them and the censorship, and just like, yeah, well, I could make some money off of them, right? I can put my
Yeah.
campaign on there, and there's going to be, because the first time I did something like this was I was like, okay, let me take the Six Gun trade paperback and put it on Kickstarter and do zero promotion. Oh, yo, what up? What up, Liam?
How's it going, Liam?
Um, I was like, let me put the book up there with zero promotion and just see what happens. And I made about like $3,000. So that gave me an indication and everybody else an indication. Oh, those are people that backed my book just because they were like scrolling and they just came across it.
Yeah.
Right. So with Zoop, for instance, they have email blasts. They have they do a social media a promotion. They have a YouTube site, I believe. They take 10%, but as my friend Sim was saying, actually, if you like do the math, you actually end up paying less because of, I don't know, like a fee that I think Indiegogo puts on each backing
Oh,
or
is it
something
like
like
credit
that.
card
Yeah.
transactions or something?
Yes, that's it.
See, that's one thing they don't factor in. And another thing too is like the longer a campaign has been up and just the natural churn of refunds and backing and refund, you actually end up paying a lot for that.
Yeah.
So like campaigns that stay up for a long time, they're nice because it's like, oh, my number's growing, but you're actually paying a lot more in fees the more that it's there, just because of the natural churn. You're just paying twice for every
Yeah.
transaction. But
Yeah.
I mean, and it's part of doing business. I'm not complaining about that. It's just
Right.
you got to look at the big picture, of
Yeah, yeah,
what it
yeah.
really costs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The only time I ever drew the line was when Jeff Bezos bought Comixology.
Mm.
And they went from taking, I think, like 10%, 15% off of every dollar that I made to 55 cents off of every dollar.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like,
Wow.
bye.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oof.
no, there's no way. That's just like, that's too insulting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and then it's what are they adding? And that's
nothing.
this is what, when Indiegogo sends out those they'll send out a survey every now and again and they'll say, what can we do more? I always take the survey because I I love a lot about Indiegogo and I want them to make it just a little bit better, here and there. But one of those things is like, what kind of promotional benefit do you get from a platform? And I think if a platform can really communicate what they do well, that's a edge. And I don't know 100% what it is that you get on Indiegogo when you launch a campaign as far as emails being sent out to their mailing list, but it would certainly be nice to know. To me, that'd be a selling point. Like, hey,
Right.
we're gonna, if you're one of our selected ones, like tell us, tell us as a creator that you're going to promote it. Because if you do that, then I don't know, it's just a great selling point. If Zoop is sending out emails, they're helping you promote it. Holy cow, that's the most difficult thing about crowdfunding.
It
So
is.
that what a great selling point.
It's
Um,
exposure. That's always been the biggest problem for us
yeah.
is exposure. Just getting people to know that we exist.
Yeah, and I could see how if I was in I'm gonna pretend for a minute that I bought a crowdfunding site, anyone.
Right.
If I was doing that and I thought, well, I want to promote your stuff. I get you. I hear you. I want to promote stuff. Sometimes things don't look good though, and I don't want to promote it. It doesn't make my site look good.
Right.
Okay, so here, give me a checklist or a review process that's like the yes, I can do it normal, but give me like a marketing review process like that's 10 days in advance or something like that. You can review it and tell me, hey, you know what, if you took out this naughty picture or this naughty word, whatever it is that they have issues with, or hey, I'm sorry, your book, it could be great, but we just, it doesn't look the best, we only want the cream of the crop, whatever it is. Let me
Yeah.
apply for that process and tell me what to do to get there, what hoops I need to jump through.
uh, that the nature of this site, of course, is that it's curated,
Yes.
and so not everybody can just have a campaign there. Now, that sucks for newcomers, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we need Indiegogo right now. We need Kickstarter because of the people that are just coming through the door. And maybe their work isn't quite up to snuff yet, but how are they going to level up if they don't have that chance, if they're not given that opportunity? And we always have to think about the people coming in through the back door. But at the same time, if this is a viable third platform that some of us more experienced and established creators can use to promote our projects, why not? So, and
Yeah.
like I said, so far so good. So far so good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this is obviously a space people are looking at. The fact that Zoop exists, they see what's happening in crowdfunding and comic books, Comicsgate and elsewhere. I mean, it's growing.
It is.
To me, this would be a place like court us,
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
us want to go there. And
Right.
I think it's early for sure, but that's
Yeah.
I don't know. I love talking about that kind of stuff. I want to see more of it. You mentioned
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
campaign, the Kryptonals.
Yeah, man.
And I backed this book. I looked through it. I think I made a video looking through it, and it looked fantastic. I've just been busy. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. And you said before we went live, oh man, you're missing out. You go crack it open and read it because it's fantastic. But they're doing a second chance campaign here on Kickstarter. And the big difference here is actually a very minor difference in that the smoke is green on this version and it's reddish pinkish on the other version, so it matches the branding of the crowdfunding site. I think clever because you're getting the same cover. It's a
And
minor difference. Yeah.
and I don't know if this is all of the covers, but there's one that's where the letters are glow in the dark.
Oh, cool.
I know they were PO'd because they wanted to get that skull to glow in the dark, but they couldn't pull that off. But they did get the lettering.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and glow in the dark, man. Who doesn't want a glow in the dark cover for their horror comic?
Yeah, always. Always. So
Oh
uh
God, look at
really cool. Yeah, this is one I flipped through it. The art looks, I mean, you just think about the detail here.
that.
Holy moly.
Yeah, Dario is a beast. Speaking of beasts, yeah,
There's some
um,
beasts.
yeah, man, some Sam Squanches, as Bubbles calls them on the Trailer Park Boys.
Pure terror. I need to read this now because I thought, man, this looks good, and I just haven't gotten around to it, but I'm going to now. So I'm
This is
gonna
dog, man.
I'm gonna pop this in the chat, and this is a recommend from your boy Brian Christgau.
Absolutely, absolutely. And can I also say, like, out of all of the packages that I've received, this was by far like the most awesome. With all the extra stuff that they put in there, it's all really cool, including Polaroids of some of the cryptids, right? Like taken,
Cool,
by
yeah.
by people that saw them in the woods, or
Oh,
or at the edge of their bed.
candid
Yeah,
shots.
yes,
That's
but
so cool.
yeah. And then there's like a bestiary and also a solo man dog comic. He's been sort of like the breakout character. And I'm a huge fan of the boys at 656, and they're fans of me. So there is in the works a man dog 6-gun gorilla crossover on the way.
Oh, cool. I love seeing crossovers happen. I hope it makes it all the way. We're gonna assume it does.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll make it.
It will. Because these guys are on fire and they're not getting the attention that they deserve. It's
Yeah.
like before one of the pages you were looking at with La Llorona, the crying woman from
Oh,
Mexican
right. Yeah.
folklore. Yeah, that's going to give you the feels. That's going to give you the feels. It's genuinely scary. Builds a genuine sense of dread, and at other times it's a little lighthearted. It's a little funny, and at times it'll break your heart. And what can I say? It's absolutely one of the best crowdfunded comic that I've ever read.
Wow. high praise.
Yeah,
Yeah, do check it out. I'm gonna read mine. I need to do an actual in-depth. I need to just sit down, read it, enjoy
yeah,
it,
you
and
do.
then
Yeah, you do.
come back with my thoughts. Whenever I read books that I like, I
Right.
try to go out of my way to make sure I let people know I really liked it. And there are
Absolutely.
a lot that I liked, but when I really like them, I want to
Yeah.
spread the word. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I just fell in love. I just fell in love with this.
so cool. All right. So I'm going to change the subject here. Um, we've already been talking a lot. It was really fun to talk about Zoop too. I was really curious about a lot of that,
I'm
but
sure.
the discussion came up. This is one thing that Twitter can be good for. I'm always worried though, like, am I offending someone by having an opinion on that's going to cost me problems in the future? But you never know. But I chimed in on this one because I find it so interesting and difficult as a writer. You always hear "show don't tell." That's a heck of a lot easier to say than it is to do,
It is.
and it takes a lot of practice. And
Yep.
in comics, you have the tools of having artwork to show, and that helps. When you're writing a novel, you have no visuals; like you're
Yep.
just using words, and yet you can still show without telling, even though
Absolutely.
you're just using words. So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
this concept, I think, discussion that broke out on Twitter, and I think in comics you can do this with writing. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit because there's some points here, but I do want to pick your brain. And this is the list. This is a how-to list, and I'm not going to pretend like this will give you all the answers, but they're a good place to start. Um, Understand what show don't tell means. That's the first point on
Yeah.
here, and I think it's
Yeah.
the most misunderstood. And again, it's very difficult to do, but you have to practice it. um if you, I don't know, from your perspective, I'm putting you on the spot here, how would you describe show don't tell?
Oh, it's very simple. It's very simple. The pictures tell the story. You look at something. I'm trying to think of some current examples. Primal being the main one, where the entire series is show don't tell. There's no dialogue.
Oh, no dialogue.
No dialogue.
That I did
Um,
not know.
yeah,
That's
yeah. And then you look at something like, for instance, the first episode of Arcane, which is spectacular. Also, the entire opening sequence of that, the first 5 minutes, there's no dialogue. It's all show don't tell, and it's incredibly powerful. When I did the first issue of Six Gun, I very much wanted to write a show don't tell series because comics had been very Brian Michael Bendist. Do you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Uh-huh.
Like a lot of talking heads.
Right.
And so I wanted, whenever I found myself wanting to put in a caption, some narration, whatever, I had to learn to tell myself to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, does that add anything to the story, or am I just wanking and just like trying to show off?
Right. Yeah.
And you always, the most important thing when you're a writer is you have to be in service to the story. And if you're working with artists, hopefully they're on that same page. And it's not about ego. It's just about, okay, let's make the best comic book that we can. Let's tell the best story that we can. And
Right.
always consider it as something outside of yourself.
Yeah. So when in dialogue, because dialogue can be important to story, I think it's important to most stories. In the case of
Sure.
Primal, it's not.
Right.
But in any story, there's usually a moment of dialogue and there's speaking happening. The difference, I think, or one big difference between show don't tell is like you don't tell somebody I'm angry. If you ever have a character say or think I'm angry, that's a problem because you've
Yes.
done all the work for the reader. So how do you
Exactly.
instead show that they're angry? And it actually takes sometimes more writing or
Yes.
sometimes more setup to show
Yes.
that. But if it's really important to show, you're going to find a way to show that, and it treats your audience with respect so that they can glean what it is. Oh, they're angry. But the thing is, you can tell something more deeply. So I could say I'm angry, or I could show you a very specific kind of anger that maybe a reader has experienced. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
there's different kinds of anger, and so
Yep.
That's why show don't tell is so powerful and why it's so difficult. I get it. It's so
It really
hard.
is. It really is, and it's odd because I was like, well, I don't want to put all this stuff in there to showboat, but now I look back and I'm like, actually, I was kind of showboating because I was just telling the story with pictures.
Yeah.
I just always feel that comics are a visual medium, and that a comic book is something that should be able to be understood by somebody that can't read it.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That, and I've seen some fantastic comic books that have, they don't have to say anything, or they, they might say something, but again, they're not hitting it right on the nose and just telling you exactly what's going on.
Yeah,
And
I
you
mean,
and you can follow it. Yeah.
I'll have talky scenes, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, I and the artist still make them visually interesting,
Right.
right? And hopefully never in a crude way where it's like, exposition dump. But you need to, I like to alternate between dialogue heavy scenes and scenes where there's like virtually none or none. And I think it keeps the story fresh. Always assume that your readers are as smart as you are.
Yeah. 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 Because
Never talk to
they can see it when you think that you're smarter than them.
Yes.
When the writer, they will pick up on it.
Oh, dude, the way that like every Steven Spielberg movie after a certain point, it's like he makes a point to tell you the message of the movie at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, you did not just do that.
Like, why?
Why?
That I think was the downfall of M. Night Shyamalan too.
Yeah.
I had so much. There's a lot of his movies I like, even beyond the point I think that most people liked his movies. I'm very generous with him, but he suffers from that. Yeah, I love that show. The first
amazing.
One, amazing. Yeah, but he suffers from. I have a point to make for artistic reasons, and I really want to make sure no one loses this point.
Exactly.
Clarity is important, but like they shouldn't be confused about what actually happens in the story when it comes to what they should take away from it. That's the part. Like, let them think.
That's the nature of art. You don't tell people what they're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
Just make them feel it. It shows a real looking down at the audience. And the thing that I loved about comics when I was growing up was that they were being written basically for mainly college students at that point. Right? And so those comics never talked down to me. Certainly the Marvel ones never talked down to me. Some of the DC comics were pretty goofy, but the Marvel comics, I had like a college level vocabulary in the 6th grade, because when I sat down with my comics, I also sat down with my dictionary. Because if Reed Richards or Doctor Strange used a word that I didn't understand, well, hell, I needed to find out what the hell he just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Benjamin Soto says, I think show don't tell also could also mean instead of telling us a character's trait, smart, strong, mean, funny, show us an example of this character trait. Exactly. And again, that's going to take a little bit more time or space, more panels perhaps, but it's so much better.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. You can actually be, once again, the ham-fisted approach. The ham-fisted approach to this is what is referred to as the pet the dog scene, where you see the hero interacting with somebody. It could be some homeless dude. It could be a kid. It could be a puppy. But they do. There's a scene where you see them do something that's an indication that they're a nice guy.
Yeah, there's someone you trust. That when you bring that up to, I think Von Klaus is one. I read a version of Terror in the Trenches well before the campaign ever launched. I don't know how much it changed, but I do know this one scene exists in one form. I don't want to say too much, but he very much has a pet the dog scene with Black Terror, and you get to see Black Terror is not just some terror that runs around all the time. He's actually a human being that is a kind, good-hearted person. But that scene, and it feels like maybe not a massive moment, but it sticks with you. I don't want to say too much. It's not my book to spoil.
Right. I'm just mad that Vaughn shared that with you and he didn't share it with me, mother effer.
Again, I don't know. I don't know how much of that existed, but it was
Right,
a
right,
long
right,
time ago. So,
right.
but yeah, I appreciate that. Um,
What I
it,
loved so much about Monster MD was was the fact that it had the heart that it did, right? Like the scene in that to me was like the piece de resistance, the thing that glued the whole thing together is that scene where Heidi gets injured and Monster MD jacks her up with this, shoots her up with this fluid that makes her, since she's invisible, luminescent,
yeah,
so that he can actually uh, perform life-saving surgery on her. And then he's just looking at her and she's just glowing.
yeah,
And you realize how deeply in love he is with with this woman.
yeah.
And then right, and then when they're making out, and then like the effect of the luminescence wears off, and he's just like, yes, right, like
Yeah,
not getting away from the comedy too much, but give the damn thing a heart. Because
right.
if you're doing something that's just funny and goofy, people are going to tune out pretty quickly if they don't feel connected to those characters, if they don't have
Yeah,
some kind of emotional link to them.
yeah.
Vaughn understands that.
Absolutely. And that was one, like, so you could have said, if I was a terrible writer and I took over Monster MD and I tried to ruin it, I could take it from the beginning and say, have exposition that says, our hero is in love with the invisible girl, his assistant, but he won't say anything yet because he's too stubborn and whatever. Like, you could go through all that and we would understand that through the story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
But
it's
how
self
much
hatred too.
the
Yeah.
yeah, but the payoff of, hey, instead I'm going to show their relationship and the rocky points and disagreements, and ultimately what it takes to save her and how he sees her through his eyes,
Yes.
essentially,
Yeah.
is really what you see. That's fantastic writing.
Yes.
That's it.
Because we've all had that moment when we've fallen in love with somebody where we're suddenly looking at them and we have new eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah. We see them
100%.
differently. Yeah.
Here's a quote here from Anton Chekhov, who says,
Yes.
"Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of the light on broken glass."
There it is.
And that is exactly like this. Show me the glint of the light on broken glass. We're not even looking at the moon. We're looking at a glass, but that glass is
Right.
showing. And you can do that on comics. I just think of the colorist here could kill that. But
Yes.
you can do that in your writing too. Like,
Yes. And put that stuff in the script, right? There's some people
yes.
like Alan Moore whose scripts are incredibly dense because he's describing every panel down to the tiniest detail. I'm not saying you have to do that, right? I certainly don't, because I also want to give the artist a lot of leeway.
Yeah.
And I don't want to create a space where they're not going to be able to come up with their own ideas, because guess what? Sometimes they will come up with ideas, and almost always it makes for a better comic book. But
Absolutely.
Chekhov, very, very useful nuts and bolts advice from that guy. Uh, Another really good book to read I recommend is Poetics by Aristotle. It's
Okay.
yeah. People are always wondering, like, people always picking. I just mentioned that because I was talking to a friend before, and he's just like, "Oh, like all these books on writing scripts." I'm like, "Leave those the f alone."
Yeah.
I'm just like, go back and read those cats. Read Joseph Campbell. Read Carl Jung, and that'll help you 100 times more than like some how to write comics book.
They'll set you straight. I still
Yes,
at
he
this
did.
at this point it kind of seems like a cliche,
Yeah.
but I like oh my gosh, I'm the
If you show a
sun
gun,
the sun also rises. Uh
oh, fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ernest Hemingway is still, there's a reason why he's the father of current fiction, and that's
Yes,
because did it so simply. He just adds a master class and everything.
I agree.
They make the most boring premises awesome. just to
Yeah,
read it.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. No, he was a virtuoso, especially in that book. That and Farewell to Arms, I think.
yeah. So the tip here is get rid of basic sensory words like I heard, I felt, I smelled.
Yeah,
Again,
Yeah, subjectives, I call them.
That's a hard one. Because you want to me, like good, you want to get people involved in a story. How do you show a smell? You know,
Right.
that's difficult, but
It
can you
is.
do it? I think you can.
You
You know,
absolutely can. You
absolutely.
absolutely can. You can in film, you can in comics, you can in writing too. And it's a
Yeah.
very underutilized sense. It's one of the things I always loved about Lovecraft. Lovecraft always used smells to
Oh
help
yeah.
sort of build the terror in his stories and the sense of dread.
Yeah. Now this whole website's fantastic. This web page, it has a lot of stuff about show don't tell, um, and I kind of just use it as a starting point. But I think you guys get the idea. Um, anything else? No. Yeah, we get it. Show don't tell is important, but yes, it's very hard. Kind of going back here to Six Gun Gorilla. This is one that honestly I want to read it again, but I'm gonna wait until I get the omnibus so I can read the whole thing in one sitting.
Oh man, thank you so much.
I'm really looking forward to it. There are a few scenes in what I've read with Six Gun Gorilla so far, missing the last two issues, but um that stuck out to me. One of those is you have this sequence of the gorilla speaking in sign language. And
Yes.
once it started, I thought this is going to be so hard for your artist to draw to clearly communicate to the reader. And when the reader does not know sign language, like you have to assume they don't, you
Right.
know, and so you have to be able to communicate what is happening there in sign language without dialogue. There might have been a couple response things, maybe. I don't even know. There might have been no dialogue whatsoever, but I totally understood it. It was so clear. And I was just like, holy cow, that was an amazing scene. It just worked so
Thanks.
well. And
Thanks.
that was one. There was earlier on, there's a few action scenes. I think when he gets to like the saloon, and you think like the classic Western saloon fight, but it was so over the top, awesome action
Yeah.
that it just, I don't know, that stuck with me. There are a few, so many. And even the gorilla, like you get back into his history, into his past, and kind of delve into his character, and his relationship with the Bible, which is
Yeah.
interesting, and like this whole religious kind of faith element
Yeah.
to it that's
Yeah.
so complex. Again, you could just tell us he had a complicated history with the Bible. No, you like showed that to us in like such a compelling way. And I'm like, I
Thank
care
you.
about this gorilla's faith in God.
Yeah. 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 Well, because it's a revenge western.
Yeah.
And I wanted a scene where he asks his father, like what the heck does that mean? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And his father explains to him, his human adopted father explains to him that human justice isn't real justice. That there's
Yeah.
only one who can really judge and knows what people actually deserve and dish it out to them.
Mm.
And he's driven by this desire, this need for revenge that's ultimately very self-destructive. And so he feels that what he's doing is wrong. He knows it's wrong, but he's going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I just always thought that would be a very, I don't know, it's compelling subject matter for me
Yeah.
to explore.
It's relatable too, which is I think maybe if I'm kind of analyzing, maybe overanalyzing it, that's part of the reason why the story is compelling, is because I'm now relating to this gorilla. I'm fighting, which is funny because it's like you should have nothing at all, in common with this gorilla, but at the same time, like I just can find this kind of the struggle he's going through relatable, and I don't know, so fun.
Important.
I love
Thank
it.
you, man. Thank you so much. I'm just, like I said, I'm just glad that people have given it the response that they have. I'm glad that
Yeah.
people are vibing with it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn over to Fatal here for a moment.
Yeah, boy.
Dracula is shipped. I do have to send out the PDFs. I'm preparing the the complete deluxe PDF version. We've got some backers, especially international backers, that got that. So I'm preparing that to send out. But other than that, I mean, Dracula's shipped. Fatal
Awesome.
has been incredibly late, and I have a number of excuses for that, but I understand that at the end of the day, the book's late, and Charlie and I both understand that. So the good news is that this book has been progressing a lot. Colors are progressing. The flats are like 98% finished.
Nice.
Colors and rendering, I don't know what percent finished, but they are moving along nicely. And my goal is to get this book off to the printer before the end of the year, really like before December is what I'm aiming for. And I think the time and effort and the love that's been put into this book, it will show. It is beautiful. It's still amazing when I look back at just like this artwork right here. I
Yeah, it's
think, oh
amazing.
man, I am part of this project. It really is amazing because it's just beautiful. But know
It
that
is.
we're both working hard on this, and working really hard to get it out this year. I want to get it out. Obviously, shipping and all those other aspects that are out of our control are there, but I think first things first is just get the book out. So, yeah. So if you backed it, I appreciate your patience. I did get, people obviously ask about where the book's at, but I've also, we'll get supportive messages from backers, and I really appreciate your all understanding and patience with us. So thank you
A-
so much.
As long as this is what I found, as long as you're transparent, as long as you give people updates, people are very understanding, very understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think monthly updates, it almost seems like the longer it's late, people want twice or three times monthly updates. Which it's like hard when you're like, I can't,
I
like
know.
stuff's happening, but it's not like
I know.
showable,
I
but
know,
monthly updates are working. So
yeah, I think when people get like that, I think they're champing at the bit a bit. They're champing at the bit a bit because they're maybe starting to worry.
yeah,
And as long as you let people know, like, look, and here's the thing too, you have a track record of fulfilling on every campaign,
yeah,
right? I have a track record of fulfilling on every campaign. If you have that track record, people are especially understanding.
right. Yeah, I think there's you know, the obviously, yeah, circumstances are different all the time, but it's nuts to look at it because I've got 4 books out. Downcast 1 through 3, Dracula is out. That's a great feeling. Fatal's the next one. We will get this out, and I think people are gonna love it. And then I'm gonna kind of, I've got Downcast 4, but I think I'm gonna pace myself a little bit differently when it comes to next year. So I think it'll be great. It'll be for the best. So
Well, just
uh,
remember that this is not a sprint; it's a marathon.
definitely. And then you think, I remember there were books I was waiting on for a very long time, sometimes, or what at the time seemed like a long time. And I have those books now, and they've been around for a while. And, I think, okay, well, I guess I'm not worried. Like me personally, I'm not worried about that book because it's here. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, wow, crowdfunding, it's crazy. When I look at this though, having over 2,000 backers is just amazing, especially when I see that there are campaigns that have less than 1,000 backers, and they'll have like twice as
Yeah,
much money in some
I've
cases.
I've never had 1,000 backers. I've had like 400. I think is the most that I've ever had.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Yeah, I'm beside myself. GPS says, how many side projects did you work on as well? um this year I had a few side projects that were small. So I mean, it was definitely a busy year. It's one though, like if people say, well, why are you working on a side project when Fatal's not done? Um, I'm not drawing Fatal, so it doesn't
Exactly.
actually you're right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't actually change anything. But yeah, I mean, it's been a big year for writing for me. I did a Silver Streak story for the Super Sons Tiger Blue 2 story. I did a little something for Don Chin. I don't think I can say anything about. I
Ooh.
did. Yeah, we'll have
Oh,
to
Don
talk about
Chen.
that. Don Chin is such a nice guy.
Yeah, he's super super duper nice guy and indie comics legend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's the weird.
Icon.
the Weird Al of comics. Like, can you think of anyone
There
that
you
is?
go. There it is.
It's him, right?
It is. Yeah, without a
So
doubt. Without a doubt.
yeah,
Love that dude.
that was cool. So I've definitely done a few writing side projects. That has been good for me to progress as a writer. So, but yeah, it's next year. I'm gonna be not as many. That's for sure. Anyway, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Brian, fantastic talking
Thank,
to you.
thank you so much for having me. And hi, everybody in the chat.
Yes, thank you, chat, for coming in, tuning in, and watching. We appreciate you. If you're catching it afterward on the replay, don't forget to check out Six Gun Gorilla, Long Days of Vengeance Omnibus right now on Zoop, and the link is in the description below, so you can check that out. Back it, and yeah, fun book. Really enjoyed it.
I can actually, damn it, if it weren't for like a few nudniks out there, I would actually offer like a money back guarantee. Like, that's how sure I am that you will love this book. And that's not because like I'm an arrogant prick. That's just because everybody who reads it seems to love it.
It's just a matter of fact. That's all it is. It's
I know.
not even gloating
That's
at
crazy.
this point. Yeah, it just is. But yeah, this is fantastic. So yeah, do check it out. I think it's a good place to get into comics if you want to read some comics. So cool. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye,
Peace
everyone.
and love, everybody.